So we're answering this question before us. It's saying solve 2 of sine of theta is equal to negative the square root of 2 for theta is between 0 and 360 degrees. First thing we have to note here is that we're not dealing with radians, we're dealing with degrees here, which just makes it slightly more annoying, but we'll be fine. The next thing that we have to do is we have to rearrange this thing so that we have a trigonometrical ratio as our subject. So that's going to be sine of theta is equal to minus the square root of 2 on 2. So I've just divided both sides by 2. Another thing that we need to notice here is that this is the same thing as this. So you just have to realize that one is rationalized and one isn't, but you might see both of these popping up from time to time. Okay, so once we've done that now, what we now need to consider is what my reference angle is going to be. So to figure out what my reference angle is going to be, you can use your special triangle. And we also have to realize here that we're going to have to use not our normal special triangle, but because we've got 1 on the square root of 2, we're going to have to use this one. And hopefully you can just realize as soon as you've got this out, it has to be pi on 4, doesn't it? Because sine opposite over hypotenuse, even the cos 1, so adjacent over hypotenuse, is always going to be 1 on the square root of 2, unless of course it's tan. But as soon as you see this, you immediately know that it's going to be pi on 4. So my reference angle here is going to be pi on 4. So that's why I say that after a while, you might not need to rely on the special triangle so much, because you'll just be able to look at what the solution is and be like, well, I know that's going to be pi on 4. Then the next thing that we need to do is figure out for which quadrants this is going to exist in. So you might just like to draw yourself a little sketch of the unit circle here to figure that out. So if we come here, draw up a little sketch for ourselves. We know that it's sine. So we're dealing with y. And then I'm going to mark in where negative 1 on the square root of 2 would be. So it would be somewhere here. So that means I'm dealing here and here. Because remember, this point here would be something negative 1 on the square root of 2. And this one too would be something negative 1 on the square root of 2. So these are the positions for which my y values are going to be what I'm after. Could I have written that any more ugly? Okay, that's all right. So what is this going to be? Well, I'm existing in my 3rd quadrant and in my 4th quadrant. My reference angle is not one of my solutions, but it is going to definitely help me figure out what it's going to be. So that means my answer is going to be, in my 3rd quadrant, if I have pi on 4, it's going to be what? It's going to be 5 pi on 4. And then in my 4th quadrant, if I've got pi on 4 as my reference angle, my answer will be 7 pi on 4. And just as I'm finishing writing this, have you realized that I've actually accidentally done it in radians when the question wanted me to do it in degrees, not in radians? So this is something that you have to be careful with. You'd lose your marks if you did it like this. You need to know that pi on 4 is 45 degrees. And now when I'm down here, you'd also have to figure out what the corresponding values here would be. The way I would think about it, because I haven't really taken the time to memorize the degrees when I have, so for the radians, I have the radians memorized, but I don't have the degrees so memorized, but you can just kind of think it through. So for instance, I know that here is 180 degrees. This right here is 45. So what's 180 plus 45? It's 225. And then we could do it again. So I know that this right here is 270 degrees. What's 270 degrees plus 45? 270 degrees plus 45 is 315. So you can just figure it out like that. You don't have to memorize them, I think. I think you can just kind of work it out. But if you want to memorize it, go nuts. All right, so that is the answer to there. So just be aware if it wants you to give your answer in degrees. If it does, then the question will be in degrees, like this one is.